After the release of Bugsy, which was fairly successful, Barry Levinson went on to produce Toys, a script he'd written with his ex-wife Valerie Curtin over 10 years earlier, and which I later helped him rewrite. It was pretty wacky but clever in how it delivered an anti-war message, so I thought it might do well. It also had Robin Williams. Barry invited me to the set at 20th Century Fox, and I was very happy to see Robin again. The set design of Toys was unusual, whimsical, quite magnificent really, and not like anything I'd seen before. I later attended the premiere of the film and was frankly disappointed. I found it hard to watch. Then, of course, at the end of the film, it was time to tell the director, Barry, how great the film was. In Hollywood, no one really tells the truth, and a comment such as, "Oh, wow, that was amazing," translates to, "Ugh, that was awful." Fortunately, Barry didn't ask me what I thought, so I didn't say anything. I'd probably have said that I thought it looked really good, which it did. It didn't do great at the box office, which was definitely a big disappointment to everyone concerned with the film. It's such a pity when so much time and effort goes into a film, and it can take years to get to the screen, and then it flops. Critics can be brutal and so often can kill a film before it's seen the light of day. Filmgoers are certainly influenced by what the critics say, but the hope is that good word of mouth will prevail, which will draw audiences to the film. Unfortunately, in the case of Toys, that didn't happen. I got a call from Barry shortly after the release of Toys, asking if I'd help him with a new script that he wanted to write. By this time, he and his family had moved from Bel Air to another beautiful area of Los Angeles, Mandeville Canyon. They'd bought this house from Mark Harmon and his wife Pam Dorber, and of course, it was lovely. Barry showed me around the house while explaining the script. He'd been fascinated by a man called Dennis Woodruff, who advertised his acting services on bus benches in Hollywood and drove various cars displaying his name in large letters along with "actor for hire." Obviously, he couldn't get an agent, so was going down the DIY route. He did this in a big way, though. But as far as I know, his various ostentatious methods of self-promotion weren't successful, and he was pretty much a joke in Hollywood. Ironically, it appears that Dennis's grandfather was one of the developers of Hollywoodland, the area that became Hollywood. Barry began dictating the story of an out-of-work actor, and as always, I wrote it down in shorthand and typed it back into the script form, making necessary changes where I thought fit. Barry's self-promoting actor was called Jimmy Alto, who eventually made a name for himself as a kind of vigilante, helping to get rid of criminals from the streets of Hollywood. The film was going to be called Jimmy Hollywood. When Barry said that he wanted Joe Pesci to play the role of Jimmy, I frowned. Really? I didn't think Pesci was likable enough. We always want to root for the lead character in a film, and I wasn't sure Pesci had the power to win over the audience in this role. Nevertheless, he was cast, as well as Christian Slater as his sidekick, and Victoria Brill, the Spanish actress, as Pesci's girlfriend. I was an associate producer on the film, so I had my finger in a few pies as usual, including casting. My nemesis, Lou DeGimo, was chosen as the main casting director, and I was an associate casting director along with Marion Levine, who'd previously worked with Lou. It felt that we did most of the work, though, while Lou just seemed to coast along, which was very frustrating for both Marion and me. Lou had auditioned actors to play the role of a drug dealer and put them on tape for Barry. I sat with Barry while he looked at the candidates, and he was not impressed. Why are they acting? He said. I shrugged. Find me somebody real, he said. Okay. When I got back to the office, I asked my casting assistant, Paul, if he was busy the next day, which was Saturday. No, why? We're going to Santa Monica Pier to find our drug dealer, I told him. He laughed. But the next day we were strolling along the pier, checking out tall Latino and African-American men, possible contenders for the role of a drug dealer who holds up Jimmy, Joe Pesci's character, with a gun. Barry wanted the drug dealer to be tall because the joke was that short Jimmy overpowers and kidnaps him in his self-made role as an urban vigilante. There were several Latino men fishing off the pier, and I approached them, explaining who I was and presenting my business card showing the Paramount Pictures logo. Some spoke little English, but with the help of Paul, I managed to communicate what I needed. I also felt I should apologize for the assumed stereotype of drug dealers being Latino or African American. We ended up arranging for 5 Latino men and 1 black man to come into the office to audition for the drug dealer role. However, as we walked away from the pier, I wasn't convinced that any of them were right. Then, just as we got to the exit, Paul and I were both drawn to a flashy new BMW that had just pulled up and parked on the road in front of us. But this wasn't your regular, everyday BMW. No, this one was lime green and seemed to have also been sprayed with quite a bit of glitter. In the bright sunshine, the car practically exploded with sparkle, and so did the tall, young, good-looking black man who got out of the car. He was dressed immaculately and almost looked as if he'd stepped out of the pages of GQ. But with a car like that, what kind of a businessman was he, we wondered? We found our drug dealer, I told Paul, as we headed towards the owner of the flashy car. I complimented the man on his car and then explained that I was casting for a film starring Joe Pesci and wondered if he would be interested in auditioning for the role of a drug dealer. I again apologized for the stereotyping and said I wasn't asking him because I assumed he was a drug dealer, but because he had a good look. Well, maybe the car had something to do with it too, I said. He laughed, and he had the most delightful laugh. His name was Sterling, and he was such a sweet guy. He offered up that he'd possibly had some experience in the drug business in the past, but gave us the impression he was no longer active. But the twinkle in his eye, along with the sparkle of his car, might have indicated differently. Sterling was excited at the prospect of being in the film alongside Joe Pesci, and that's exactly what happened. Barry loved him, and he got the role. Sterling had never acted before, but because of possibly his previous experience, he didn't go over the top in the scene where he was dealing drugs, as the professional actors had done. He was cool and natural. He also dressed well and had a sweet personality, with, of course, that cute laugh. He worked perfectly with Joe in the hold-up and kidnap scenes and had so much fun. He decided that this would be his next career move. I told him that it was a precarious profession and that it wasn't always easy to make a living, that he would need to take acting classes and get an agent and so on. I did take him along to an acting class taught by a friend of mine, but it was clear that Sterling would need quite a bit of training, which he wasn't keen on doing. I was sorry that the film didn't do well either, so he wasn't able to receive much money beyond his daily rate for his work. I think he believed he would be rolling in dough after appearing in a Hollywood film. Another misconception about the film business, I believe. I don't think Sterling ever appeared in another movie, but I'm sure he's got some good memories of his time on Jimmy Hollywood and lots to share with his colleagues, whoever and wherever they may be. In the next episode, never judge a book by its cover, and the beginning of my years of volunteering at a children's home. If you're enjoying my episodes, my social media guru, Horatio, has asked that you please like the recordings, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when I post my next episode on Sunday. Many thanks, and your support is greatly appreciated.